Now it's Saturday night in the deep sounds. They bang hip-hop, gridlocked in Greektown. The beat cops looking for somebody to beat down. They got no control, who's running the streets now? They shutting all the schools and the factories been closed.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the qWARRENtine. I'm your host, Warren Peace. On today's show, I interviewed my friend Marbrisa, who is a singer, songwriter, extraordinary musician. We talked about a number of things having to do with what it's like right now to try to be a musician or someone who kind of makes their living out in public, figuring out how to do what you do in a pandemic. So I'll get to that in a minute. And speaking of music, I kind of want to shine a light on a few different projects that some friends of mine have put out just today. So some of my very best friends in the world are putting out music right now, so I want to talk about it. So the first one, I'm going to go in order of when I met people rather than how close I am with them, to be fair. So the first project I want to talk about is my friend Rich Hebner, aka Alex, long time homie of mine, actually kind of the guy who got me into doing music in the first place. Back in the day, he had a rap group in high school, and he said, "You should join my rap group." And I said, "I don't rap." And he was like, "You can rap." And so I started writing raps, and that's kind of how I ended up doing it. So we've worked on music together before. He produced a song I released a while back, many years ago, called Eggnog Heavy. There's a music video for that on YouTube still if you're interested in, in feeling sick to your stomach. It's a pretty gross video in a lot of ways. I think it's funny, but anyway, Rich Hebner produced a project that he just dropped on the world today called Sweet for Egg Shen. It is a 5-track project that's all based on samples from the music from the movie Big Trouble in Little China. This is a project that's been in the works for a long time. I've been hearing about it for years, so I'm glad that he finally dropped it on the world. And you can find that at Bandcamp. I'm going to put links in the notes on YouTube and wherever I post this. I'm planning to post this as a podcast as well. I haven't done that with the first episode yet, but I think I'm going to take the audio from these and just post them as podcasts as well. But for now, I'm just putting them up on YouTube, and I'll get to that other stuff when I get to it. So that's the first project, Rich Hebner, Sweet for Egg Shen. The other project, actually 3 good friends are involved with. It's a rap album called Cosmic Gossip by Josef Coney Island. So Josef Coney is a guy who I've known for many years. Actually, he directed the aforementioned music video I talked about for Eggnog Heavy, and that's kind of how we got our friendship more solidified. We knew each other from going to rap shows and stuff like that. And Coney is a very creative MC, very much a storyteller, very into playing with words, and a deep thinker when it comes to language, which I very much appreciate. And also he's probably the best freestyle MC that I've ever met. And when I say freestyle, I mean off the top of your head, not written down, not a verse that you wrote and are just rapping in with no beat. I'm talking about just off the top of the dome, that kind of stuff. He's really great at it, and he is one to do it wherever he is. So if you ever meet him, you'll probably witness that. So he made a project. It's a 9-track project. Again, it's called Cosmic Gossip, and it was completely produced by Coney, who was the other MC besides me in a group called LXL that I was a part of for about 5 years. I would still say I'm part of it now, but we're just kind of we're gonna put out more music, but we're kind of not out there performing. I don't know if we're gonna create new music. We're still, we're gonna rap on each other's projects and stuff like that. So it's all good with me and Ja. But Coney is a rapper and a producer Actually, pretty prolific guy when you look at all his solo projects and everything else that he's done. He's been in several groups. So I was very honored to work with him for all the time that I did. And we did a lot of stuff together. And he produced this project, and this project's been in the works for a long time. I've heard most of it over time because he would play stuff for me. So this came out today as well. Really excited to dig into it and kind of listen to it front to back instead of just random track here and there like I've heard it before. And it was also mastered by Ryan Cunningham, who's another good friend of mine, who I'm doing, well, right before this pandemic hit, I was starting to do some recording with him, working on my solo project. So lots of friends coming out with lots of stuff today, and I hope you'll check that stuff out. And you can look on YouTube. I'll put it in the links underneath the video. So I talked to Marbrisa. She also has an album out recently. It came out towards the end of last year, I think, and I think it dropped in September, I want to say. And she's still putting out music videos for that project. It's a great project if you like world music, if you like, if you just like good music, but it's live instruments. She's a guitar player, and there's a full band. Some of the songs have horns on them. Really great. She sings in English and Spanish. We met at a show a while back. I think we met at the Hamtramck Music Festival, not this past year, but the year before. And we just we knew some of the same people. We liked a lot of the same local music. We both spoke Spanish, so it was just kind of a natural friendship occurred. But we really haven't seen each other very much since we've been friends, probably like 2 or 3 times. And we've mostly had our relationship be over, over the internet or text or whatever. So it was actually really good to get to talk to her for a prolonged period of time and kind of hear her story, because I didn't really know like how she learned Spanish or where her musical influences came from and all that kind of stuff. So that was very interesting to talk about, and I hope you'll find it interesting as well. I'm also gonna just keep plugging away at these. I've got a long list of people that I'm going to be talking to, and I believe tomorrow night I'm going to interview my friend Rob St. Mary, who, if you're in Detroit, you might recognize that name because he's been in local media for a long time, does a lot of stuff on radio, and he's also someone who I've known for a long time, and we were actually in a band together many, many years ago. So we got a lot to catch up on, but for now, I'm going to turn it over to my interview with Marbrisa. Hope you enjoy it. All right, Marbrisa, welcome to the Quarantine, episode 2. It's good to see you. How's everyone in your life with this whole pandemic that we have going on? Is everybody healthy and safe so far?
Yeah. Everyone of my friends and family are doing all right. My parents have a hard time staying indoors, so they keep going to like the riverfront or like metro parks and stuff, which I guess is fine. And they're getting their groceries delivered, so.
Yeah, my parents too. It's good.
Yeah, they'll like randomly show up at my house though, because they just like hate being trapped.
Yeah, it's really tough I imagine it's tough for everyone, but when you're older and you have grandkids or you have just kids and you're like don't really get to see anyone, it can be, I'm sure it's kind of a drag. I mean, my house is full of people, so I don't have that loneliness going on.
Yeah,
I'm opposite of that.
Yeah.
So where in the world are you stationed during this unfortunate event?
I'm in Detroit proper. I live with roommates, but I'm staying at my friend's empty apartment while she stays with her boyfriend the whole time. So I have a key here. So yeah, I kind of do that. I kind of stay here mostly.
So you're in solitude at the moment.
Yeah.
And
Which
how's
is
that?
okay sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, you're a singer-songwriter, so I imagine it's helpful for that.
Yeah, it's nice to just sing really loud and stuff. Um, yeah, like some days I'll really like it, and then I'll feel like, oh man, I'm really lonely. And then I get really obsessive with social media to find like human connection again.
Mm-hmm.
That gets kind of annoying.
Yeah, I was
Um,
off Facebook for 3 solid months before this and didn't miss it at all. Uh,
wow.
and then and then got back on because all this stuff like moved to Facebook. It was like everything I was seeing the first like 2 weeks was saying, go to Facebook and you can be on this,
Yeah.
you know, we can go on watch
I
this live video.
know it's so hard to avoid.
Yeah, so it's definitely reminded me of why I left it and the things I don't like about it. But
Yeah.
it's also sort of like entertaining to see what people are saying about what's going on right now, and sort of I try to keep myself a little bit at an arm's length from it so I don't go crazy. But
Yeah, I can get really obsessive. People like to post a lot.
yeah, yeah, and you end up seeing a lot of the same people saying things a lot, and that can be really frustrating.
Yeah.
So you just came out with a music video in
Yeah.
the middle of this. What's that been like?
Um, yeah, it's a video kind of about, well, it's called The Great Gatsby, about like the nostalgia for older times, basically. So it's kind of relevant to the
Yeah,
current scenario. I obviously shot the footage before this happened, and edited most of it too before it happened. But yeah, so I'm pretty excited to have it out in the world. There's just so much internet content right now
yeah,
that it might be getting a little lost. Because I thought maybe, oh, like everyone's on the internet, like so they'll probably really watch it. But I know that like there's just so much internet content going on right now.
yeah. I've never really found in my music career that there's a real good formula for any of that. You know, some things you just put out,
Yeah.
don't do anything to promote, and it gets a lot of views, and some things you do everything right and it doesn't. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's just kind of one of those things where it's really hard to know how to make it happen. But
Right.
that's a song from your most recent album,
Yep.
and do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I really enjoy it, and you sing in multiple languages, and maybe talk about
Oh, yeah.
how you came to do that a little bit.
Yeah, I released it this past fall, and it
It's called
was
Ciclos, right?
ciclos. Yeah, means cycles in Spanish. It was kind of like the main reason I came back to Detroit from traveling in Central America and Cuba, because I wanted to make this like big, high quality professional album using Detroit musicians. So that features like, Aretha Franklin's main drummer, Ron Otis, James Simonson, who's a phenomenal bassist in town. He's played with like DSO and Betty LaVette tours. Sean Blackman, I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like,
He's played at my neighborhood beach for
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
the summertime event we have every year. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, he's the homie. So he's
Yeah,
like a
I
mentor.
talked to him about you when they play. I don't know what, I think it's in July when they play that event.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, the guy who I think you know a little bit, the guy who's like the neighborhood association president, he's always the one who books all that stuff. So we've had like Nadir,
Oh yeah.
and we've had Steve, and
Steve
we've had,
Caldwell.
yeah. So we've had good.
Yeah, he's my producer.
Yeah, and I talked to him about your album, and he was
Oh,
like
cool.
pretty excited about it when over the
Oh,
summer.
cool.
Yeah, so you got a lot of really well respected Detroit musicians on there, and it
Yeah.
sounds great. And so how's that been going? Because I know the release show is a real. I was talking to you about the planning of the release show, and
Yeah.
a lot of work that went into that. And it was really successful. So how's that kind of gone since then?
Yeah, that went really well. And, I kind of had like the postpartum depression after it. I was like, oh, how do I continue this?
Yeah.
So I kind of struggled with figuring out whether I wanted to like move to a new city to promote it, or just try to like do a DIY tour, regional tour somehow, because I primarily only play in Detroit. And neither of those happened really. I mean, I went to Mexico to like make another music video and like get out of here.
And you thought about staying, right? You thought about.
Yeah, I almost stayed. I almost was like, this is fucking awesome. But I came back to just continue grinding, continue like this path I built here. Because then you tend to get like really comfortable, like when you have a lot of freedom or something. Like you feel like, whoa, it almost felt like I didn't even know if I was gonna continue being a hardcore musician there. Like, I just felt really relaxed and like I could just do whatever, especially since the cost of living's so low. I was just kind of like, yeah, we'll see. But anyways, I've been making steps to figure out how to set up a tour by talking to people that have done it. But like, yeah, nothing really got going, and then like the virus hit. So
Yeah. I mean, I've only done a couple like mini tours, 3-4 cities, and it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
The setting it up's really hard. Doing it is hard. Like it's not an easy. I think a lot of people glamorize it, and I'm glad that I have the experience of having done it, but I quickly was like, oh, I don't like this. Like I just, it's hard, and it's physically demanding, and it's emotionally demanding when you're like rolling into some city you've never been to, and you have no idea whether the show's been promoted well, and whether the venue's really that great of a spot or whatever. And there's ways to do it that are probably better than the ways we went about it. But at the end of the day, it's really challenging to try to line up all those dates and make sure that where you're going makes sense to go to the next place and the next place. And it's a lot. It's a full-time job just to set up something.
Yeah, exactly. I got overwhelmed like from the beginning, because I was just like, how am I supposed to do this by myself? Like,
right.
And like I came to like the conclusion, like, okay, like the first tour run I would have to probably play by myself, which is fine. I prefer to play like in a small band, but I don't really have like that kind of band right now.
Right.
So to be willing to do that, like
Sure.
so yeah, it's a lot, and I still would love to do it. But yeah, I don't know, like the way things will be in the future. I
Yeah.
feel like it'd just be easier to just move to like a new city and just play there and then move to another. I don't know. With my lifestyle, like I could do that easier personally.
Yeah. So speaking of lifestyle, I want to come back to like Mexico and all that in a little bit, but
Hmm.
you can't like go play in front of people right now, and that is a big you regularly do that every week. You're playing in multiple places, and that's like an
Hmm.
actual like part of your income and how you pay your bills. So and then I know like a lot of the work that you do that isn't music to pay the bills is also stuff that requires you to leave your home and be
Yeah.
around the public. So like how are you making do right now? Like what are you doing to uh survive, I guess?
um, I've done, yeah, I think a lot of musicians kind of had like an identity crisis at first of like, oh man, we get so used to finding our self-worth through these performances and our projects, and it
Mhm.
gets very addicting. Um, so the live stream concerts are like exploding. Like
Right.
it's crazy. I've done like a couple, but I don't want to get too addicted to that either because everyone's doing it. And I'm kind of just like taking the time to learn more music. I'm trying to write more because I really lost the patience to write the last couple of years because I was just always going and going and booking shows and setting up the the album stuff. And I got away from like that patience, to just dig deep and write. So I'm doing that, and I'm not freaking out too much about financial stuff right now because I know like everyone else is in the same boat,
Right.
and like you actually realize, I mean, I'm actually like barely spending any money,
Yeah.
so it's kind of nice. And
That's
I'm like,
fine.
yeah, it's amazing how much money I'm saving from just not doing anything. I'm not driving, I'm cooking more. Um, and yeah, kind of like doing house projects for my landlord to pay for rent. So
That's cool.
I'm okay, and I'm always like saving as well. So some of
Yeah.
these things, you got to have like your emergency fund,
That's
especially as
true.
a musician when you're so unstable.
Yeah,
So
well, that's pretty
yeah,
amazing that you're able to do that as a kind of gig worker. So
yeah.
uh, so in terms of like writing music and stuff like that, because you often perform as just a solo artist with you and your guitar, and then usually when you're throwing like a show or an album release, you're gonna have a band with you, and I know you
Mhm.
do all kinds of stuff in between with trios and things like that. But
Yeah.
when you're writing, or I guess when you're working on an album and you're bringing in these other musicians, like, are you writing all those parts, or are you just sort of like, here's the song, here's the changes, and they fill it in, and then you give them notes, or like, what's that process?
Yeah. So yeah, for like the album, I told him the feel I wanted, and like I wrote out the chord charts kind of thing. Um, and then the bassist and the drummer then like writes their lines per se, like the bass line and the you know, if I say like I want like a funky hip hop groove, and I don't really even have to explain much because they're so pro, they
Mhm.
can like immediately get what needs to be the music. But then for the like the smaller shows, it's pretty like free for, it's pretty like we're just grooving and jamming. Like I'll give them the chord charts again, and sometimes we rehearse, sometimes we just, you know, they're always such good musicians. I don't even really have to rehearse with them. I mean, I play with like Will Sessions bassist, Tim
Yeah,
Schwarberger.
they're so good.
Yeah, they're just so good, you know, they're like jazz musicians usually, you know, so they can play to ear. And yeah, that's kind of how it goes usually.
And when did you start playing? Were you a kid when you picked up a guitar?
No, I wish, man, I'd be so dope. um, you know, it's funny. I actually like created a memory that I took piano lessons based on, it's really funny. I thought I took piano lessons only because my mom would take me to the piano teacher's house where my sister would take piano lessons. Well, and I thought from association that I was taking the lessons, but we were just in the waiting room.
Oh,
So
wow.
I actually really never played an instrument. I took like, I don't know, maybe a semester or a year of viola when I was in middle school. So when I was like 12, and then I quit immediately. And I never wasn't really into music until like I was like 22. So I, you know, I graduated college, and I lived with a couple of bluegrass musicians, my friend Lindsay Lou, and I got inspired because I knew that like I could sing a little bit and I wanted to learn music. So I bought a ukulele and taught myself. I moved to the jungle of Costa Rica to work an internship when I was like 23, and that's basically when I started learning.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you were learning like from Costa Rican musicians and what?
Not even, because like I literally was living in this jungle village, so there was barely a population.
Okay.
So I just kind of used like this little booklet, you know, for the beginners of ukulele, and really basic stuff. And then I moved to Guatemala, and that's when I really started to learn music, like Guatemalan cumbias and reggae,
Wow.
and started to like play on the streets with them and jam with them. So that was like a couple of years playing with them.
And did you know Spanish before you went to Costa Rica, or did you just learn it when you were there?
Yeah, it was my minor in college. I studied abroad, and I really wanted to get fluent. So yeah, it's like the best way to learn the language is just to like live in that country.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I moved to Honduras.
Yeah.
You know, I was living in California before that, and I had gone to teaching school there, and so I was student teaching, and I had all these kids from Mexico in my class, and I was like, I can't communicate with these kids or their families at all. And you know, I took Spanish in high school and college, but never really cared about it. And then I had a youth for it, so I was like, oh man, I want to learn. And so I just started trying to find teaching jobs in other countries, and ended up in Honduras. So you know, it's something that has been a huge benefit in my life. How does it work for you? You know, I don't know if you know my friends Tino and Rolando from Pancho Villa's Skull, but they're a band, Yeah, so they sing all in.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they're great. I'm sure.
How cool you know them.
Yeah, we played LXL played a show with them years ago.
Oh yeah, I love them.
Yeah, and I was just like, these are my people. And then we've played shows together. I've gone to their shows. They came and did a thing at where I work. Like they played before we did this Latino panel discussion, and they sat on the panel. So yeah, they're
Oh
the
my God,
homies.
that's so cool.
But I've always kind of wondered, and I haven't talked to them that much about this, but the same question applies to you because you sing a lot in Spanish, but for an audience that largely doesn't know Spanish. So
Yeah.
what's that like, and how do you, do you think it's beneficial? Like, does it help your with audiences here, or how does it, or are they just like, does it not make a difference? Like, what do you think is the impact, I guess, of singing in Spanish in Detroit?
I think it's like a mixed feeling review thing. I definitely was really ambitious about like doing primarily only Latin music at first when I first came back, and especially like Cuban music. But it really just wasn't resonating with the majority of the people at the places I was playing at. Like they were into it, but not for like 3 hours, like, and like not with, with Latin music. It's cool to have more instruments on board to make it that authentic sound, especially with like harmonies. It's such a big harmony thing.
Right.
So I was kind of disappointed because I was so passionate about it. I was just like, this is so cool. Why doesn't anyone else get it? But like, they just, a lot of people beyond Southwest Detroit, like aren't bilingual. And aren't huge, like world music lovers.
Yeah, we're really like secluded in America when it comes to music, and we have a really hard time being outside of like 3-minute pop songs. And I think that's really it was really funny to me, like when the song Despacito became this huge hit here, and I was like, and it was like 2 years ago, and I was like, this sounds exactly like the music I heard everywhere in Honduras in like 2005. Like it's not new. It's not like groundbreaking sound.
What is it, like bachata style, or
it's
like
reggaeton?
Reggaeton.
So reggaeton is like, I'm one of those people because I'm a hip hop artist, so I hate when people say like, oh, that blank genre sounds the same, but that genre all sounds the same. It's the exact same, like drum beat, and there's obviously differences, but it's like very, very, very similar. So, and that's how Latin music is, it's all based around like the drum, but there might be some different like tones or drum sounds that they use, and reggaeton just really, really sounds the same in a lot of songs. So it was just funny to me that we, and the same thing happened in like the late 90s, early 2000s with like Ricky Martin and all that kind of stuff that was like,
Ricky Martin,
So it comes in waves where suddenly everybody's like, oh, we like Latin music, but it's
there's more like fusion stuff going on, but it is a lot more of the like reggaeton, where I was like doing really traditional styles like bolero and just older styles. But not, so I'm not like as into performing Latin music right now because it just doesn't relate to me right now. I'm getting more into like soul and funk and R&B and hip hop and jazz.
So what was it like when you were just in Mexico? Like, had you been in Latin America for a while, and Like what did it, I don't know, like I went to Costa Rica in last January, and it was like the first time I'd been in Central America in like a decade, and
Oh wow.
it was just really great to be back there. And
Yeah.
the Spanish there is like the Spanish that I learned, so I was like understanding everybody and just felt like very,
Like
and
your
I'd never
old.
been to Costa Rica before, but I had, I lived in Honduras. I traveled in Nicaragua a lot. And so it just felt very like familiar to me, and very comforting to be there. And I just
Yeah.
like fell in love with it again. So, what was it like in Mexico recently? When were you there?
I had the exact same feeling. I was there in January just for
Okay.
like 2 weeks, and it was amazing. It was like the most successful trip I've ever had. Like, usually, I mean, I've had great trips, but they always have some kind of ridiculous outcome, like contracting a parasite or like, just ridiculous situations. But it was really great. And like, yeah, exactly how you felt. Like you kind of just like fell in love with it again, and fell in love with your connection to it, and also just feeling so good that you can speak the language,
It's
after
very
so long.
empowering.
Yeah, it's just so, and that's the whole point of learning another language, is just to communicate with someone else. Like, it's not
Right.
even about getting the job. Like, they push for that in schools, like, oh, you should be bilingual so you get a job, and for me, it was more about like, yeah, but I just want to like connect with people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the great thing about knowing another language as an American is it's very unusual. And so people like
Yeah.
people are like really, so like when I was in Honduras, Honduras isn't really, especially where I lived, they're not necessarily used to seeing a lot of uh, foreign people. And so people would be like, oh, you're American? That's cool. Like, what are you doing here? And they were like already liked me because I was like taking my, like I cared enough to like be in their country. And then when I would speak to them in Spanish, they were like, oh, wow, this guy also knows Spanish. Like, he actually has a respect for our culture and like wants to understand us. So it just opened doors everywhere, where it was like
Yeah.
people wanted to tell me things and take me places and like have me have a good experience in their country. And it just really like opens doors in a way that, because you're like a celebrity there, because they just don't
Yeah. Yeah.
usually see people like you. And so I had tons of experiences just being there that I wouldn't have had, in some random city in America, because I'm just some other person. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of surreal. Yeah, and it's always interesting, like playing music abroad too, and like this shine they kind of place on you because you're like this Westerner singing in Spanish. And I don't know. It's always interesting
yeah.
doing
Where were you in Mexico?
primarily Mexico City, and then I was staying with my friend who's a videographer in Jalapa, which is in
Okay.
like Veracruz, the next state over.
Yeah, I've
So it's
heard.
not a very like touristy place, but it was cool. Like the weather's pretty nice. It's just really kind of like California subtropical weather, and
Jalapa's like in the center of the country.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
center.
think I want to say, I might be wrong about this, but when I was student teaching in California, the guy who I was student teaching in his class had taken a sabbatical and taught in Mexico, and I want to say it was in Jalapa,
Oh, okay.
because I know I've heard of that place before, and I kind of have an idea of where it is on the map. So I don't know why else I would know that. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
cool.
he described it like it was a pretty cool place.
Yeah, it was nice. It's got like, it's just got this mix of like European architecture with like cool Pueblo-esque culture mixed in. And they're really big into jazz. Mexico's like super hip to jazz right now. They like love jazz. So
Wow, that's interesting. And like, is there an era of jazz that they're into, or is it just like everything?
yeah, it's kind of everything. Like, I mean, I think a lot of bebop stuff. And sometimes it's like fusion, you know, like Latin jazz stuff. Um, but there was just jazz every night, you know. It was so funny. It's like all these little cultural clubs playing jazz music. So
That's
like a
cool.
lot of instrumental jazz, more so than vocals. Yeah.
And so you just went, you had this friend who does video, and they were like, come to Mexico and we'll do a music video, and so you just went? Is that kind of how?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like my idea because I was like, what'd you say?
I just said, is that how it worked? Like, you just,
Oh, well, I kind of invited myself, but but I was just like, yeah, I want to do a music video in Mexico, and because she lives there, yeah, like it was just kind of like, I mean, I really wanted to film it in some Latin American country, and I really like the work she did, so that's why I chose Mexico.
and
Uh,
what's the song, and when's that one coming out?
I think that will be out in like a few weeks, probably. I have the footage. We just have to edit it.
What song is it for?
So that one's for Nací. So it's in Spanish. I sing it in Spanish. And it's cool. It's like a cool. I mean, it sounds more like a Brazilian song, but it's got like a bit of like a Cuban groove to it, and
Yeah,
yeah,
that one's really good. I think I'm bad
yeah,
with like remembering titles and which song it is, but
yeah.
I think that one might be the one I like the most on the album.
Yeah, it's kind of got this cool like 6/8 vibe, and I think it's playing on Culture Shift this weekend.
Oh, cool. WDET.
Yeah, like yeah, because Ryan Hopper or Hooper, forget, you know what I'm talking about. He hosts Culture Shift.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He saw me perform it, and he was like, "Oh, like we'd love to have you do that live at the studios."
Oh, wow.
Can't do that now, but he said he's gonna play it on air this weekend. So yeah.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah, that's have you heard your music on the radio before?
Just yeah, WDT has played one of my songs, Incredible Killer, on Culture Shift, I think like through Jeff Milo and Rob Reinhardt.
Yeah, that's
So,
cool. I had we had some LXL song. I don't think they ever played a whole song. As far as I think they played some clips,
no,
like because Milo was doing like a preview of like the
the Milo
Arizona
Minute or
Music
something.
Festival or something, and or maybe the Dally, and like played like 30 seconds of our song. I don't think
Yeah,
I ever got a whole song on there. Or if I did, I wasn't listening at the time.
yeah. I love WDT though. It's like that's pretty much the only station I listen to, along with 90.9.
Yeah. There's it's interesting because I wonder how it is for like, teenage musicians or people in their 20s, like in their early 20s that are like didn't really grow up on the radio, if they have that feeling of like, hearing their song on the radio and how like big of a deal that is, or if they're just like, oh, whatever, I don't
Yeah, yeah,
like, I don't even listen to the radio, so I don't know why.
yeah. They're streamers, you know.
Yeah, because I had this conversation with a friend of mine. I put out a music video like years ago, and it was pretty well done, for what we were working with, and like the guy who produced the music for the song was like, did you ever think when we were kids we could make something like that high quality, like stuff that we saw on TV? And I was like, no, that's a really good point. Like it's easy to lose perspective because everybody's just kind of a videographer and a musician and a creator now, and everybody's got a
Yeah.
camera in their pocket. But like back then it was like, well, how do they even do these things? And like, who has this equipment, and how do they get it on
Right?
TV? You know,
Yeah.
like it's pretty amazing what we can do these days with media.
Yeah, it's so fast. It makes me feel like overwhelmed or like pressured to like put out shit all the time.
Yeah, I have like different opinions about that, because I don't know that works. Like I don't know. I've always been like a quality over quantity type of person, where
Yeah, me too.
I just think doing good work is more important than pumping out work. And there's
Yeah.
people who are amazing who can do both of those things. I'm not one of those people. I can't
Yeah.
I can't create all the time things that I'm happy with enough to like put out into the world. You know,
Yeah.
even what we're doing right now took me like a global pandemic to be like, all right, I'm gonna just start like interviewing people and talking to them, because who knows?
But it's
like,
perfect timing because of the title is perfect.
yeah, I was proud of that. But I also think like, you know, everybody's just sitting around, so it's a lot easier
Yeah.
to schedule an interview with someone right now.
Yeah.
So the I'm trying to think what I haven't talked about yet. Is there anything I haven't talked about that I should talk about with your music? Because I don't want to leave anything out.
I guess well, I got into like playing guitar by busking on the New York City subways,
Oh wow.
which not everyone knows about. Um,
Were you were living in New York?
yeah.
How have you lived in so many places? That's a question I don't
Yeah,
understand.
that's why I'm saying like it's easier for me to probably just move to a new city than to set up this goddamn tour. But I just, you know, I've never had like a full-time professional job other than doing what I want to do, you know, whether it was like teaching yoga or like bartending or tutoring Spanish. So it allowed me to kind of like just get up and go whenever. And I don't know, I've lived a lifestyle where I haven't put too many huge attaching responsibilities on myself, like owning a house or anything. Where I've allowed, I mean, that's getting harder now. Like I don't really move around much. These were all like my ridiculous adventures of the 20s.
Yeah. What brought you back here? Because I know you're from the suburbs of Detroit. So why
Yeah.
you came back for family, or just wanted to be in the music scene here, or what?
Yeah, I just found it, it's one of the more affordable cities in the US.
Well, it's
And
changing, but yeah.
yeah, it's changing, like, yeah, so we'll see. But I was like, yeah, I mean, I went to New York City and I was just like, I can't fucking survive here, like playing just music. Like I
Right.
was like, I literally was living in the Bronx, sleeping on a hardwood floor with two other guys in the same room and
Wow.
paying $450 a month. Yeah, like it was so stupid. And I was just kind of going crazy. Like, I was just like, I'm not doing, and I was just, because I was just playing music on subways, trying to make a living. Like, I don't know. I was really ambitious. Like, I was like, I only want to do music.
Yeah.
I don't want a job at all. Like, not even any side job. I was just like against. But I quickly ran out of steam after a few months.
Pretty hardcore.
Yeah, and it's also like not even legal. You're not allowed to play music inside the train.
Oh, in the train.
Completely illegal. So yeah,
You
like I was
play in
playing
the
while the
station?
train was moving. Yeah.
Okay, so you were just playing on the train. I've seen people do that though. So everybody who does that is breaking the law. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's completely illegal, and they would have like undercover cops. It was like a video game. Like, I would have to get on the train and like look around to see if there's undercover cops while I have my guitar and my kazoo.
Did
and
you
then
ever
I'd
get arrested?
No, you don't get arrested. You just get a ticket. It's like a $50 fine or $100. Or,
Wow.
I
Well,
know.
when you're barely making the $450 rent for the floor, that's a big ticket.
Room.
That's not good.
It was awful.
Well, and I heard stories of people moving here who weren't from here, like from Brooklyn, because it was like cheaper to live here as an artist than it was there. I heard a lot of stories like that.
Yeah.
Maybe like 7-8 years ago, maybe a little more recently, but now it's like becoming like it was there. I mean, I don't think it's anywhere.
Yeah, it's rising quickly. I mean,
yeah.
And it's really annoying. Yeah, I mean, I would love to live in New York, but I would need like a job, like I was set up. You can't just go to New York or LA. I mean, maybe you could and just freeload it, like I'll figure it out when I get there.
Yeah, it's really tough. I was after college, I lived in Santa Barbara, California, because my then girlfriend, now wife, was living there, going to school, and
okay.
Yeah, and I had a degree, but I couldn't find work for a while, and then I worked at a bookstore, and I was making like $9 an hour, and half of my pay was going to rent. Like one paycheck a month was just my rent, and it's tough out there. And luckily, I think the good thing about the West Coast is like a lot of the entertainment is free. Like you can go hiking, or you can go to the beach, or you can just be outside a lot of the time. So I was never going to like bars or clubs or anything, because I just didn't have money. But I still like had a good time. But it wasn't easy, and that's definitely, like I mentioned, I have a beach in my neighborhood. Like I couldn't afford that in like anywhere else in America. So
right, yeah,
it's very affordable to live in Michigan, and I think that has helped our scene in Detroit with the arts, because people aren't they're able to pay rent and stuff.
Right. Yeah, so that was like one reason I came back, and and I had like a couple friends here, so a couple friends plus my family. I mean, I had to I was kind of like crashing at my parents too, in order to just like get by and find another place to live. But I was just able to really like enter the music scene pretty easily. Like I just started with open mics, and the community's pretty like, small. I mean, it's fragmented, but it's like, it's easy to know,
Well, I think that's what happened with me too, because I originally was doing stuff with a band, and then that became, I couldn't make it work anymore, and then I was like, all right, I need to get like beats, and I need to find the producers, and very quickly was able to like meet people. I I met, you know, I know you've done some recording and stuff with Eddie Logics, and
Yeah, I love Eddie.
yeah, so Eddie had produced like every track on this Detroit Hustles Harder compilation that you know,
Yeah.
they used to call that company Optimal. That's like the actual name of the clothing company, but now they just call it Detroit Hustles Harder.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so they put out this compilation, and he ended up, it wasn't supposed to be like this, it was supposed to be like different producers, but he was the only one putting in work, and so he ended up producing this entire, like, I don't know, 20 song compilation. And I heard that, and I was, at the time I was looking for people to do stuff, and I was like, well, this guy can do everything. Like, he every song on here sounds totally different. So I just like hit him up, and then
Yeah.
I did a project with him, and then I've recorded stuff a few times with him, and done shows and stuff. But like, I feel like in other cities it would have been a lot harder to go to like someone who you know was doing stuff like that and just be like, hey, I want to do some work, and then being like, okay,
Right.
you know. And so I definitely think that's it's a scene that's very tight knit, but also a scene that's pretty open to like collaboration, and really only cares if you're good. And if you're good, then you
Yeah,
know,
it's pretty genuine.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can play. If you can play, if you can do it, then people are down with you, and they don't really care like what you look like or where you're from or you know any of that. Which
Right.
and it seems like across genres, because I know the hip hop communities like that. And I think you know, it just seems like every scene is kind of like people that are just down to mess with people who are like-minded.
Yeah, it's nice. There's not really a lot of bullshit.
No, it's hard though. There's a lot of people doing stuff, and it's hard to.
It's pretty separated. Like it's
Yeah.
like very real, but it's also just it's still and it's like this with every city is it's got the like cliques, you know, and
Yeah,
everyone's got their own little community and it's
I
hard to
think
cross.
I think our geographical situation is difficult too. It's really spread out, and there's no public transportation, so people have
Yeah.
to make like really strategic choices about what they're going to do on any given night. And sometimes you just happen
Yeah.
to be like playing at the right spot on the right night, and sometimes there's some other thing going on somewhere else where everybody decided to go and your thing doesn't have anybody. And it's really it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough.
Yeah, it's always hard to plan big shows.
And
Like
there's just
even
not,
my album release was
there's not
like
too many people either. Like, it's not a
yeah.
that big city, so if there's anything in competition with you, it makes it really difficult. What were you saying about your album release?
Oh, like I think it was during the DIY fest. So
Yeah.
like I had a great turnout, but I would have even had a better turnout, like probably near capacity, if the damn fest wasn't going on because like and there was construction, so like because a lot of people told me they tried to come and they just couldn't find parking. So
Wow.
you know like stuff
Yeah.
like
Well, that
yeah,
fest
and
is
it's
like right down the street
what
from
you
that.
couldn't find parking, you know.
Yeah, that fest was like right down the block from where you were though, so
Yeah.
that made it tough.
And you know, Detroiters, we don't like to walk more than like 2 blocks so,
Right.
when we
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah. And I've had you know, I've had shows on weird nights that were awesome and somehow packed, and then nights where everything was done right in advance and everybody did their part and just didn't work. So, you know, it's just the life of a musician's very. I don't know that most people, if they haven't done it, really get like
Yeah.
how you just can't. You can do everything that you're supposed to do, and it just you don't know.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you just fall into like some super successful thing, and you're like, I don't even know how that.
Yeah. I was having this conversation with my roommate about, you know, the online the master class series.
Yeah, yeah.
And, how there's a lot of famous musicians on there, you know, and I just feel, I haven't watched one yet, but just I can just tell that it's kind of like, I feel like advice can only go so far, because it's like you can do all the right things, but everyone's path and story is just like a combination of like luck, hard work, and who you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's not much else to it. Like, it's just, that's the main thing.
Well, and I think like the last, maybe 100 years or a little bit more is like one of the first times in history where artists would get like successful in their own lifetime, and before that, like a lot of people just never made a dime off of their art and then became world famous after they died. And so,
Right.
I was just talking to somebody online about this, I think today, where they were like kind of lamenting all the like work they put into something that never really like took off. And I was kind of like, that's not really like, it's hard to do it for that. You have to like do it because you have to do it, and because you have a vision that you want to create into the world, and you can't control the rest of it, and it's just not really. And I think like our capitalist system trains us to view success with money and sales and all that, but like I kind of look at my quote unquote career, like I don't really call it that because I didn't ever really make any money, but I got to do a lot of the shit that like before I started doing it, I was like, that would be really cool to do. Like I want to play that festival, I want to play that venue, I want to be like hanging out at this spot with these people, and like all that shit pretty much happened. So like I view it as a success, but I also never really put all my like eggs into the music basket as far as like my financial security. So I think it's really hard to do that, and I think I have a lot of respect for people that do, because it's not easy, and it's a really long and challenging road with a lot of ups and downs, and it messes with your like self-esteem, and it's
and it's like not something you really like can ever walk away from either, so it's kind of like
true that. I mean, yeah, for sure. Like I have the luxury right now, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna write songs and I'm gonna like record them and see what happens, and hope that I come up with something cool, and maybe I'll perform them sometime, but like I don't have to do any of that shit. But that's also helpful for me. Like I don't, when I can just purely create without any kind of like inhibition or any expectation, then I can make better music, I think. But but at the same time, it's hard to like force yourself to do it sometimes if you don't think you're gonna ever do anything with it.
And I mean, I'm not on like a label or anything, but
right.
Like, that's kind of like the label life is you're kind of like expected to be this like factory of content. Constantly.
I know you've been doing I know you hang out with Mayani a little bit.
I love her.
My
album work.
LXL opened one of her shows at the Magic Bag a couple years ago, because I'm friends with her brother, and so hearing her story is really interesting about being on a big label and how she kind of it's not everything is cracked up to be, and then she's kind of had more like success as far as like reaching audiences like since then. So because I know her her like single that's basically like kind of about the label like dropping her is like her biggest song. So like, you know,
Right. Yeah. Underdog. Yeah.
yeah. So everything kind of happens the way it needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really interesting too. Yeah. Finding, and that was so cool becoming friends with her because I'd like obsess about her early on. Like I was like really this like kind of before I started even really playing guitar, I was like really just into this her and then because she works with with Steve,
Oh yeah.
that's kind of how I got to know her and like it just made me realize how normal people are or like how normal how like everyone's going similar hardships and like how relatable, you know, people who have been touring and worked with famous people, you know, how like down to earth and just relatable they are, you know, and so yeah, that's been just cool
Yeah.
getting to know more people like that, I guess. Yeah.
So we've been talking for a bit, and I don't want to hang on to too long. It's getting kind of late, but I do
Oh, right.
want to
Yeah.
ask you. I've been kind of I've tried to wrap these interviews up. I can't say what I've been doing because I've only done one of these so far. But the
Yeah.
question I'm sort of closing out with is, you know, we're living through this sort of unprecedented thing, or if there's a precedent, it's like before any of us were alive. So um, I have a lot of my own views about like having hope for what might come from this, you know, and what might change. So I'm wondering, do you have any thing that you are hopeful about for the future, or things that you think this might lead to that will put us in a better place as humanity when this is all over?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were, you know, I know we touched on it the other day, but like, I think I think society's just having some breakthroughs on how damaged our capitalism has screwed people over. And yeah, the call for universal health care is just kind of like, duh. Like
Right?
we just need the obvious thing, you know, like because everyone's connected too. Like so a disease is gonna affect other people. Like everyone just needs to be like covered health wise, you know? And then also this whole like essential worker thing is mind blowing. You know, how undocumented immigrant farmers are like now we're just like praising them, you know,
Yeah,
and contemplating whether we should deport them still or not, you
absolutely.
know. And I'm just like hoping like, okay, wow, like at least maybe we're getting a discussion going on like, oh yeah, maybe like these are actual human beings and that like are equal to us, you know, like the virus isn't racist and neither should we be. And
Right.
you know, where it's kind of mind-blowing. Like it's, I mean, obviously it's heartbreaking what's going on with people getting sick and how it's hitting the more like impoverished communities, people of color communities, right? But besides that, I'm thinking like something positive will come out of just like human breakthroughs, you know, of what we need to change. Like big changes on these kind of levels, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely an opening for things that maybe weren't politically possible you know, just a few weeks ago. And now it's becoming clear that there's things that, you know, that there's a lot of that everyone's more vulnerable than they realized. And, you know, like even just like you were talking about with healthcare,
Yeah.
the idea that it's tied to your employer, well, your employer can disappear in an instant, and that's happened. You know, we've got like millions and millions of
Exactly.
people like applying for unemployment. Well, a lot of those people don't have a health insurance now because they lost their job. So
Yeah.
why should that's nobody's fault. It's not their employer's fault. It's not their fault. But now they don't they just die if like they get sick. Like that doesn't make any sense. So I think there's definitely, I agree, I think there's definitely room um for positive change. And I think you know, you brought up like the immigrant farmers and stuff. I think workers in general are showing their worth and how much power they could potentially have if they got together and, you know, showed their strength in numbers.
Yeah.
We're seeing that with supermarket employees striking and things like that. So, you know, I think we needed a shift of some sort, and it's, you know, it's a painful shift in a lot of ways. And, you know, I'm still worried about people I know and, you know, family members and getting this virus. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I think some good will come from it. So I just want to ask you one more question, which is, where would you recommend that people find your music? What's the best place they could to support you the most? And hopefully my audience is, if there is one, I can't guarantee there is one, but hopefully the audience will consider supporting your work, so that, you know, during this difficult time where you're not able to do the things you usually do to generate income,
Yeah.
and you can float by. So
Um, Bandcamp is cool. You know, it's just marbrisa.bandcamp.com / like Ciclos, I think, which is the name of my album. So you can like buy my album directly digitally there. And you can also donate. You can also pay. It's like $7. You can pay more if you want to donate more. I mean, someone like paid me $50 for it, and that was really cool.
wow.
I
Well, and
know.
also, you know, I think a lot of people don't understand. We kind of talked about it, but like it costs a lot of money to make an album, and
Yeah.
you hired like really good musicians and worked in a real studio, and, you know, it wasn't just sort of like you and a laptop and, you know, posting it up on
Right.
SoundCloud or whatever. So, you
Yeah.
know, there's some costs that need to be recouped when you do something like that. And it's really great. So I hope people realize that it's worth the investment, because it's a really good album. And
Yeah. Thank you.
you're really talented, and I hope that some of my people will discover you through this conversation and enjoy your work.
Yeah. And see the new video, which is on YouTube.
Yeah. Great Gatsby's the name of the track, and it's a really fun video and really good song. There's a horn section, and it's kind of a mix of
Yeah. I just
performance.
wanted to like highlight, you know, the real musicians, the real music part of it, because like we've opted out to replacing musicians with computer musicians, and I don't know, I like want to maintain the vibrance of real live performance, you know, and that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I went to see the Roots when they were here a couple months ago, and
Oh, cool.
it was just they were mind blowing. And it's like, you know, I've seen them a bunch of times, and I just kind of went into it like, cool, I'm gonna see the Roots again. But then you forget sometimes with some of these artists, like what they do and just how amazing it is to be in the presence of people creating that in front of you.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that from an artist and a fan perspective, just shining a light on real musicians and real music. So thanks for what you do, and thanks for talking to me. And
Oh yeah, this was fun.
awesome. I'm glad you had a good time. I hope we can.
Yeah, I was feeling so lonely too, so it's like nice to connect with like a human.
Yeah, no doubt. That's kind of my goal here. Is hopefully we can. I mean, part of it's just selfishly. I want to talk to my friends and.
Yeah, right.
Might as well put it online, I guess. That's what we do with everything. So
Yeah.
right.
Sure. Yeah.
So good talking to you. Have a good rest of your night,
Ooh.
whatever day it is. I don't even know anymore.
I know the day. I'm like, what day is it?
Yeah.
Everyone's losing track of scheduling. It's hilarious.
Oh, and I hope
yeah.
you have a good Passover tomorrow too.
Oh yeah, is it?
You're celebrating.
I'm such a bad Jew. I don't celebrate this. Okay.
Yeah.
So Passover starts tomorrow.
Tomorrow night. Yep. Don't eat any bread and you'll be straight.
Yeah, I wonder if they're all sold out of matzah.
I don't know. I got some boxes here, but I don't know.
Oh, cool.
You know, I'm trying not to go out. So.
Right.
All right, it was good talking to you.
See you later.
All right, bye.
Yo nací en las alas de su corazón. A volver a destino.